besides Mexico City, the second largest city in the entire continent. The entire state is less than 0.04% of carbon emissions. Less than 0.04. If we went to zero carbon emissions tomorrow, nothing would change.
Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're having way too much fun today. All kinds of weirdness here in the studio this morning that we can't discuss. Unfortunately, it has to stay behind the scenes. But right here, the lovely Camellia Peterson on camera. Good morning, CJ. How are you?
Thanks.
Glad to have you here on the show. Give her a round of applause. And click like on that stream if you've been enjoying what you're seeing. I've got to give a special shout out and a thank you to one of our biggest supporters, Quest Fanning, who sent us a super chat. Quest, thank you very much. Your support goes a long way to help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty around the country. A lot of people do watch us sometimes around the world. He says, though, that New York can pry our 25-year-old Viking assault stove from my cold, dead hands. That's the attitude I like to hear. Let's hear from another New Yorker's take on this as well, who's joining us this morning, Larry Sharpe. Good morning, Larry. How are you, sir?
Good morning, my brother. Good. So good to see you. And I got to tell you, love the shirt.
Thank you very much. Yes, I appreciate it. It's very much in the theme of the show today, for those who know. Larry, I was told that no one is coming for your stoves, and yet New York seems to be coming for your stoves. What's going on up there?
New York does something very slick, several things. I mean, when it comes to corruption, I got to tell you, some of you other states think you're in a league. You're not. We got you down, right? Number one, we don't even pass laws anymore. We ban stuff in our budget. I'm not joking. We just pass a budget and go, by the way, we're going to pay for these things, and stuff you love, gone. That's just how we do it. We didn't bother voting this way. No one's responsible for it. It just kind of goes away. And we always say we do it because we love you or care about you or something. This is supposed to be about climate change and air quality because New York loves you. But you don't understand that New York State is losing 300,000 people per year, running away as fast as they can. The biggest states they're going to, by the way, are Florida, Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And Jersey is a stopover state. They go to Jersey hoping they can somehow get a piece of New York, but they can't. Then they head to Florida anyway. So that's kind of how that works. But the reality of this is it's not because New York State is mean or dumb or any of those things. And people think that. It's not that. This is a gift to our governor's friends. Because as you begin to shut this down, you have to now rebuild everything in renewables, right? New York State, about 80% of New York State's energy comes from gas or fossil fuels or something like that. So now you're going to have to triple or quadruple all our renewable stuff. That's all federal subsidies. That's all contract work. That the government's just giving the contracts to her friends, which she's very good at, by the way. Again, corruption, we're good at that. So she's going to make sure that happens. That's the reality. And if people get trashed in her wake, it doesn't matter. They never come for your stuff. They just make it to where you just give it up, right? They create environments where you just give it up. The second thing that happens here is landlords are, if you're a small landlord, you're devastated. You can't afford to rebuild anything. You can't afford to fix anything. And now we've just added in New York City rent control. Worse rent control. We've had rent control forever. We're now adding even more of it. So now what winds up happening? Any small landlord can't survive. They can't rebuild. They can't fix. They can't repair. So what will happen? Zombie buildings. We already have zombie houses upstate New York where people have just packed up and left. And people don't even realize who owns the house. You'll soon have zombie buildings. Why would you care about zombie buildings? Because who buys these abandoned buildings? Well, real estate hedge funds and big banks and all those people. And somehow she has to reward those people who she destroyed during the lockdowns. The lockdowns were devastated people for commercial real estate. So commercial real estate in New York City is devastated. Well, how are you going to make up for that? Well, these big people will now buy all these smaller people's things. As we keep seeing, even with our recent banking issues, big banks keep getting bigger. Big finance companies keep getting bigger. And now big real estate people keep getting bigger. In New York State now, our largest lobbyist group is real estate. Also, by the way, this all comes together. Also, when it comes to cannabis, we have an Office of Cannabis Management. So now her friends can buy all the farms upstate. So now the gas stove makes sure her friends buy everything downstate, and the cannabis makes sure they buy everything upstate. This way, her friends can buy everything. And so I know you're saying to yourself, Larry, this sounds crazy. It's not. It's just crony capitalism at its best.
It's wild too, because you have the people who are the the true sort of, the corporatists, the people who are the benefactors of
Yes.
these policies. But then you have like your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes and stuff who are the useful
Hmm.
idiots, right? Because
Yes.
you've got plenty of people there in New York, Larry, who think that who actually drink the Kool-Aid, don't they?
Hmm. Yes, they actually believe it's helping. But here's the thing that you don't understand. Well, most people don't understand. I'm sorry, you do. New York State, if you count all of New York State, as big as it is, the biggest city literally in America, right? This a second largest city in the entire North America, right? Mexico City is bigger than us. Besides Mexico City, the second largest city in the entire continent. The entire state is less than 0.04% of carbon emissions. Less than 0.04. If we went to zero carbon emissions tomorrow, nothing would change. Literally, everything is virtue signaling. In fact, this is something people don't know. New York State per capita, we are already the lowest emission state in the entire country. Already, but per capita. That's actually true. Per capita, the lowest, and it doesn't matter. This is all virtue signaling for the AOCs of the world so they can do their horribleness and feel good about it. And then in reality, it is a way of her just raising more money, Democrats raising more money under the guise of, Austin, I really care about you. You're just too dumb to understand. So let me be your dad, and I'm just going to give you the good stuff. And it's fine. They don't even realize one other thing. Tourism is one of the biggest things in New York State, which means restaurants. Now restaurants can't use gas stoves. You're going to crush our restaurant business in about 20 years, devastate them. And again, they're complaining also. So what will probably happen is larger companies, meaning the franchises, which those are all big companies, they will carve out an exception for gas stoves. That's what will happen in the future. Large, big business will carve out an exception, and the small guy or gal trying to open a diner is devastated and has to become a fry cook. That's how that works.
You know what it is? I think Camellia is. I think they're fooled by them big old socialist titties. Did you see that picture that I shared of AOC the other day? It's one of my favorite memes. Is that picture of Thomas Sowell where he's like, "Don't be fooled by big old socialist titties. They're meant to hypnotize, then enslave your ass." If you're just tuning into the Wake Up.
Well, I mean, she is hot. It's true.
She is
Saying that's
smoking.
true.
She is smoking hot, and that's how they're gonna get us.
Oh my gosh, one of the kids that works with us yesterday posted a thing and it was like Matt Gaetz and AOC and he was like, I'm shipping them. Like we're totally getting together.
Gonna hook up for sure. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're glad to have you here. If you're wondering who these people are that you're listening to right now, the lovely Camellia Peterson joining me in-house. And joining us all the way from is it a great state really anymore? The Empire State, probably, more likely.
The Empire State, yes.
Is the great Larry Sharpe, though. We will assign that title to him. So, Larry,
yes, but
the gaslighting.
I got to grab one more piece if I could. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be bugging you.
No, go ahead.
You gave me a platform. I'm going to jump on it, brother. You gave me a platform. Yes. So we just had literally more violence in New York City subways. You probably saw that already, right? So we have violence in New York City subways. That's just bad. Now we have regular people trying to stop, I guess, people who have mental illness or issues like that in our subways. People are dying. We have that happening. So you know what the right answer is? We're going to take your gas stove. This is the same way. It's more virtue signaling. It's the idea that we have actual problems in my state with people who are concerned and worried. So what we're going to do, something that makes you feel good, but doesn't make your life better. And then here's the worst part of them all. When this happens, we now have protests in the subway about justice for the guy who was killed. Now, again, I'm not upset about that. That's nice. But no one's talking about the stuff in the back that's crushing the entire state. And when this comes into effect with the gas stoves and the gas heating, we're now going to have more slumlords, which is where this guy came from. We're creating more of an environment for more people who are in trouble to be in trouble and to be on the subway so that people can get killed. And people are saying, this is what matters. Let's make sure this guy has justice, not let's fix the problems that are creating more of these guys in our subways.
Sarah Palacio says, good morning, Larry and Austin. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show this morning over the live stream, make sure that you click like on that stream if you enjoy what you're hearing. And if you're watching us on YouTube or on Rumble, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you can get more great breaking news and opinions like the ones you're hearing right now. I heard this story a few days ago, Larry. I read in the New York Post. New York's income sinks nearly $16 billion compared to pre-COVID as residents flee at an alarming rate. Did you see this headline?
Absolutely. And here's the worst part. Our budget now is $230 billion. You might go, Larry, does that really matter? Is that big or is that not big? Texas has more people than us. Theirs is $100 billion less. Florida has more people than us. Theirs is $100 billion less. Literally, we are over $100 billion more than two states that are bigger than us. So yeah, and with that in mind, what happens? We're making less money because our tax base is going down because businesses are leaving. I get it. And people are leaving. I get it. So again, this is something we don't realize. In 1 month, 6,000 people changed their license plate, their driver's license from New York to Florida. That's just Florida. That's 200 a day. 200 a day. And her answer is, let's make it harder to live here. Let's not make it easier. Let's make it harder. But again, this is one of the reasons why I'm talking about this. This gas stove thing will give us tons of money in federal subsidies to create renewable energy. That's one of the reasons why she's doing it, because now we'll get Uncle Joe writing us more checks. And New York State survives on checks from Uncle Joe. So that's a critical piece.
The funny thing is that there's actually a philosophical theory that they have, a term that they've come up for for these kinds of policies, Larry. Maybe you've heard of it before. Have you ever heard of the term libertarian paternalism?
No, tell me.
So this is there was some professor that I heard at American University a number of years ago in DC talking about it, and this was the concept behind Obamacare as well. But the left has decided to adopt this theory called libertarian paternalism, and what it does is it doesn't force you to comply with a policy, but what it does is it forces you to opt out of a policy.
Yeah,
Essentially, you are automatically opted in, kind of like Social Security, right? You don't have a choice, right?
right.
Although you can't opt out of that, but or the mail, for example. But for like gas stoves, for example, they're not banning gas stoves; they're just not allowing you to build new ones, right? Like
Right.
we're not forcing you to get health insurance; we're just opting you into the program, and then you'll have to figure out a way to opt yourself out if you want to get the private market. But this is kind of like the way that they're stair-stepping us
Yeah.
towards ever creeping more socialist control. So it makes sense because people are typically, it plays on our laziness and our willingness to comply.
Absolutely. I mean, look, think about how hard it's going to be to get your gas stoves repaired, finding someone who can fix it. And now if I know I'm the one guy in my town who can fix the gas stove, I'm going to charge you whatever I want to charge you. I'm the only guy who does it. And then how am I going to find parts? Right? It's going to be a disaster. So yes, you make it to where I just can't afford to not comply. And that, in my view, is the sickest of it, because they always wind up punishing the poor, the working poor and middle class, because they're the ones who can't afford to opt out. I'm not going to be able to afford it. So I'm going to have to just go, you know what? It's I get a new car, or fine, I'll comply. I just want my kid to go to college. I'll comply. And that's how it winds up happening. That's what happened. That's what happened with the mandates for the jab. Same thing. Do you want to survive in New York State? Fine, I'll get the jab. It's just fine. I'll just do it. Okay, fine. I'll get rid of my stove. Fine, I'll do what you say. You're right. They're not ordering us. That's an accurate statement, right? They do it with guns in New York State too. They make it so impossible to get a gun. You go, fine, I won't get one in New York City. I mean, I don't know if you know this, in New York City, if I have a firearm, I'm limited to how much time I can be out of my house to go to the range. So if I come back from the range and I get caught literally in traffic and the cops stop me, I'm going to jail because that's how limited I am. So they make it so why bother? I'll just take it. I'll just be bullied. You win. You win. Please stop punching me. Just stop punching me. You win. That's
Larry, are you going to stick around New York and fight the good fight and plant your flag there, or are you going to flee one day?
Brother, I am trying. I'm trying to make 2024 something that will work for this state, because to be forward with you, this is a beautiful state. It is an amazing state. Its government is garbage. The government is so oppressive, it breaks up families. The government is so horrible, but the state itself is amazing. I do love this state. If anything you want in this state, you can have, whether it's lakes and rivers and mountains and skiing, whether it's Broadway, baseball, football, classical art, anything you could want. It's amazing. We just got to fix our government.